The Dane and Derek Show is an uncensored, unfiltered podcast. Content warnings can be found in the episode description. Hello, and welcome to the Dane and Derek Show, a podcast where two nerdy friends keep in touch and shoot the shit. I'm Benig-Aiello, a writer, director, and occasional D&D player, and with me, as always, is my buddy and friend, Dane Fogler.
I'm Dane, writer, musician, podcaster, and lover of tabletop RPGs. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. This week on the pod, I'd like to shout out my friend Kelly Duong for listening and really enjoying some of the dialogue episodes we've done.
I don't
Yeah,
know you, Kelly, but I wish I did. You sound cool.
Kelly's very cool. I hope one day y'all can meet. But yeah, how are you doing, Dan?
Doing pretty good today. I will say, I bit my lip really bad when I was working out this morning, and
No.
yeah, it's like really fat in a corner. Um, and so like I'm talking and I'm like having to consciously open my mouth and move around it, or I'll like bite my own lip again. And I'm
Oh
like worried.
no.
I'm so self-conscious right now that I sound funny. Um,
Well, if it makes you feel better, you don't sound funny, and I wouldn't have noticed. And also, there's no video, so no one knows.
I know. So here I am. I don't know. I just thought I'd let everyone in on that. On my naming my anxiety here.
Fair. It's good to get it out there. Then you can defeat it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which, speaking of like doing things in a day, um, what's an unnegotiable part of your day?
Uh damn. Here's the thing. Honestly, almost everything is negotiable. Um almost everything. There are very few exceptions. Exception one, I need all three meals. I have to have them. I can get away with less sleep. It's not great for me, but I can get away with it. I cannot get away with truly skipping too many meals in a row. I will fall apart like nobody's business. Um, so
Huh.
that's completely unnegotiable. And currently, the other non-negotiable part of my day is um, studying for the LSAT. So, and that's new and will not last forever, of course, but that is truly not negotiable right now. Um,
That would make sense. You
yeah,
kind of want to pass that.
I do. I want to do well. This is true. There are things that I am deeply loath to give up. Like I loathe giving up whatever creative time I've set aside for writing or editing podcast stuff. I hate missing a workout if I don't have to. Um, I try and read and play the piano at least once a day. I hate when I miss that. Um,
Mm, gotcha.
and then you know what? One other completely non-negotiable part. I need to see my partner.
Mm,
I a day when I'm like a day I could have spent a little bit of time, even just an hour, with my partner Gracie, um, that I didn't get the chance to. Like if she's out of town, I mean, whatever. But if she's in the house and I haven't made that effort, that's a really bad day. So yeah.
oh.
What about you?
For me, it's pretty simple. I'm a very simple person. I have one unnegotiable part of my day, and that's I have to shower. I have to shower in the morning. If I don't shower in the morning before I start my day, the day's a wash. And even if I shower in the afternoon, it's still I'm completely offset for the day, and it just doesn't go well.
Hmm.
It's how I wake up. It's how I start my day. It's where it's where I think. It's where I sort of like plot out exactly what I want to do, and it's just sort of like it's like that's more of an alarm clock than my actual alarm clock. So me showering knows it's time to get up. Like for instance, today was a great day. I got up at 7, I worked out, and then I showered, and I was like, great, it's 8 o'clock. Time to go do everything else I need to do. And I have had a wonderful, wonderful day today. Um, but some days where I wake up and it's 1 p.m. and I go, all right, I guess I'm going to go shower at 1 p.m. I guess I just don't have anything, but there you go. Um, so yeah, that's my unnegotiable showering. once a day.
Gotta say, I'm kind of with you. I love showering. I didn't really think about my shower, but very, very key part of my day. Not, I've survived without
We
those.
all
So I would,
have,
yeah.
but still, it's just I don't know. I mean, here's a question: do you take a long shower or a short shower?
I take way too long a shower, like
I'm the opposite.
way too long.
Hmm. I'm the opposite. I a good shower for me is under 10 minutes, and a great shower is under 5.
Wow, like 40 minutes sometimes.
What?
Yeah, yeah. It's
40 minutes?
terrible. It's horrible.
Oh my
I just love
goodness.
being in the water. I love
Wow.
being in the water.
Wow.
Well,
I mean, I like water too,
see.
but
I think it's a holdover from the days when I was a competitive swimmer. When
that
most
makes
days
sense.
I will have spent like almost 3 hours in water, and like it feels weird to not have done something like that even now. So like I think I take really long showers because of that.
Wow. Yeah,
Um, but it
that makes
is
sense.
terrible. It is horrible. Like I feel bad about it every day. I'm like, this is terrible for the environment. This is terrible for our water bill. This is terrible for like my productivity and time. I share this bathroom with Gracie. She might need to get in here. And I do it anyways.
One of these days, you just gotta like write yourself a coupon, like a guilt-free 2 hour long shower, and you just gotta do it.
Yeah, I should see at that point I should just go to like a hot springs because it's the same thing. It's
Ooh,
the same thing for me. Like I just
I
like
see.
being in comfy water for like a long time.
Huh.
Yeah.
Oh, good to know. Good to know. I should just get you a container of water for your
Just
birthday.
water. Just
Which
just just wawa water.
just
Agua.
which
H2O.
your birthday already happened, right? February
Yeah, it's
6th?
February 1st.
Oh, February 1st. Oh, right. Happy belated birthday, my
Thank
friend.
you. Question: do you remember when we
Hmm.
did the ice bucket challenge? By the way,
Yeah.
listeners, do you remember the ice bucket challenge?
I
Um,
think that video is it. I have it somewhere. If it's not on the internet, I have it. I have a file somewhere. Maybe I can include that someplace.
yeah, I remember
Oh,
we
that
kind
was
of did a
so
bit.
cool.
Yeah, I was not comfy. I remember we did a bit where I was grumpy about it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
you were so grumpy. Like grumpy with like an O.
yeah,
Grumpy.
grumpy. There it is.
uh Speaking of not being grumpy,
Mm-hmm.
Dane, when you're not grumpy, what does your artistic process look like just in general?
Whew.
I know it's a big
Derek
question and I
coming at me with
apologize.
big questions. The real thing, the real deal.
I know.
Um, artistic process.
Yeah.
Okay, I will start at the beginning because there are two instances in which I make art, and I'm meaning this broadly. I'm talking the podcast, I'm talking poems, I'm talking the novels, I'm talking music, whatever it is. There's two processes that I use, and they're about the what I need the art to be. There is the I'm on a deadline. I am making work for a very specific purpose, or I'm making work for its own sake. And I'll go over work for its a specific purpose first because it'll be quicker and it'll make more sense. This is sort of the process I would do with most film soundtracks I used to do back in the day. This
Mm,
is the what I do when I approach um, typically music for the podcast. This music needs to be in this case it's mostly music. Occasionally I'll do with this with writing too, but not quite as often. But this music needs to serve a purpose first and foremost, and it cannot wait for anything. Like,
gotcha.
if I get a call, if or in the past, if I got a call on a Tuesday night and the director's like, I need it in a week, it needs to be done in a week. I can't sit around waiting for a perfect idea. More often than not, in all of these cases, there are things that need to be done. There are themes that need to be connected to characters. There are uh, structures that need to be filled. In the case of films, the film is 20 minutes long, so there needs to be 20 minutes of music.
Right.
And in those cases, honestly, I just do it. Like it's not like there isn't a specific process beyond like there's a certain process of like, okay, I'll do a first draft, I'll create some melodies, or I'll do this like first chunk of things, the initial creation. I'll do a first round of edits. If I need to send it to somebody to take a look at it, or I need some feedback, I'll do that, bring it back. Next round of edits, do whatever I need to do to make it a final draft, final copy, final whatever, put it out the door. But it's not a process of like, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to do a lot of thinking. It's a lot of like, in the case of music, since this is when I've done it the most, it's like, I'm going to just pound on the keys. And if something comes out that is like good enough, I'll write it down. And then boom, that's like where I'll go. Like this happened just a couple weeks ago where I was like, da da da, and I made a little melody, and I was like, there it is, there's the melody. I'm not gonna look for a quote unquote better or perfect melody.
Mm-hmm.
I am going to take what I have and I'm going to string it out and twist it and play with it and build on it and do all of these things and grow it. And honestly, that tends to work much better in these cases because it's like I will come to something that I like probably. Um, but my philosophy on this is you're trying to sort of you're trying to almost like win a game. Like it's like you're trying to succeed at something. It's not good enough if you learned something, you know. You need
Mm-hmm.
this thing, and so I don't concern myself with making perfect art. I don't concern myself with being perfectly happy or thinking that was like the best I could do in that moment. I kind of think about it like a baseball game. To win a baseball game, you can't just hit home runs every time. Like you literally won't. You can't. You can't try to come sit down and be like, I'm going to try and hit a home run today. And if you don't, you're like, whatever. I'll just throw all my doubles and singles and triples and move on and I'll try again. And eventually I'll have put together 20 home runs and that's a complete like piece or whatever. You need to hit some singles. You need to hit some doubles because the game is happening right fucking now and it has to be done.
Mm-hmm.
And it's good enough, right? It's good enough because, you know, it has to be. So that's my philosophy with that is like do good solid work. Approach it kind of like a craftsman almost. Um on the other hand, if I'm making work that's for me, if that
Mm-hmm.
makes sense, like truly for me, and this is the novels I've worked on. This is all of my poetry I've ever done. This is um this is the anthologies and diceology. Like there's a part of diceology that's very workmanlike because the episode has to come out on time and you know certain things about it just have to be done. But there is a process of when I'm coming up with an anthology itself and doing like the creative groundwork that is much more freeform and I will wait for the
Mm-hmm.
right thing. And the process for me on this side works like this. Um I I'm not a person who believes in uh waiting for a muse exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Um there are definitely days when like inspiration is just flowing or something's working better than other days. But the way I think about it is you have to sit down and open the door for the muse to walk in. You can't wait for her to knock, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Um like so I try and my process is usually sitting down as close to every day as I can and putting some work in. And it's much less like something has to be done, but it's more like opening up the space for something to be done. And at worst, what happens is like maybe I'll have written 1,000 words and it's bad. And I'm like, well, worked out some bad ideas. I'll throw that aside and, now it's out. Now I've learned. Now I've gotten something. Some progress was made. Or in or other days, it's like, wow, that was a beautiful 2,500 words. I probably won't do tons of edits on that. Or this poem is just done. I'm not gonna touch it again unless I'm gonna format it to send it to a publishing um, group. So it's much more about being present and doing consistent work, making sure that like I'm ready for a good moment. Or in the case of there's not a good moment, doing some solid work and improving it later. But my process is actually, I tend to start with like a color or a feeling,
Mm.
um, and build out from there. Um, and try to just sort of like, it's all about capturing that feeling. Like a piece I did a while ago called Sin and Lavender is entirely about the colors indigo and gold and being in a small apartment room during a rainy day. Like I just wanted
Huh.
people to feel that, um beyond anything else. Like that's where it started, with that feeling, and then it kind of evolved into this thing of like, oh, this is about the feelings of connection and how people support you through uh your emotional pains, like that's how that kind of evolved. um
Mm.
or like 11 Jump Gates essentially started as the feeling of me when I was in Prague, looking up um, at like this older architecture, this architecture from from like the 1700s, looking up at it and thinking about how all of our modern technology still is here, and then um, imagining a future I don't really fully understand or can conceive of, laid over the top of this, that these bones will still be here. Um, and that combined with like the color pink. Um,
Ah.
and so like that's the process. Is it starts there, and it's all about teasing that out into a story I want to tell, or um, prose I want to write, and but it's all about working back there and communicating that feeling to somebody, that like that vibe. And I can't guarantee that someone's gonna like pick up exactly what I'm putting down, but I want to make that connection. Um, so I
Mm-hmm.
have to constantly be coming back to my original feelings over and over again, so that that stays genuine through the piece, so that whatever someone gets out of it is also genuine, right? Even if it isn't exactly what I meant, I want the other person to have a genuine reaction to it. So I have to stay genuine to my feelings.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yeah.
I I think that's like, I think, pretty similar to, it's like similar in some ways and similar in different and different in other ways, of course, to my sort of process. Like things definitely start with a feeling, and that feeling gets worked into a thesis, and then from that thesis I try and extrapolate based on other things I may have read, seen, or heard, or things that just, I let my imagination run wild. And then I try and, see exactly what, like what am I trying to do here? Like the short film that I just finished, Heroes Pizza, it started with like, a feeling of wanting to reconnect with people.
Mm-hmm.
And then that became the thesis of like, how do you connect with people when you're separated? And then that got extrapolated into, what if I just drove to a different state to say hi to a friend? And then that became, well, what if I was giving them a pizza somehow? Somehow I made the connection that it should be a pizza.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, it became this story about a down on his luck pizza delivery guy that makes a cross state journey. And, that's how like the idea forms, but it's usually like years of acquiring feelings and things and reiterating the same thought. Like I'd written like 3 or 4 other pizza guy delivery movies before this, and I had written several other films about reconnecting and trying to connect with people before this. but it was sort of at the right time in the right place where the two things kind of mesh together to create the one thing. And so there's like a part of it where it, like for me it's like, creating 1,000 clay pots in a year to make one good one.
It's
And then
iteration.
yeah, iteration, finishing things, just doing them over and over again, and eventually figuring something out of nothing. um but lately I've been like really trying to rely more on the things that I can make out of a thesis versus just my feelings, because I've noticed that my worst films are the ones where I had a feeling going into it,
Hmm.
but at every step of the way my feeling changed,
Gotcha.
and it's reflected in the work as being inconsistent. So I'm really trying to rely more on that sort of thesis that I craft, and really like I it's part of I think why I've leaned more into screenwriting lately, is because that becomes like the thesis, and that becomes like a guiding set of principles for me to follow more so than ever. um and so oft very more than often I will more often than not I will write a screenplay, and I will rewrite that screenplay, and I will just keep rewriting that screenplay until I get it to a point where someone tells me I should make it, because I've overwritten at that point. And in the past, I was definitely at a point where I would, instead of, I'd write like one or two drafts and then eventually just go on to just trying to shoot it and leap into it a little too quick.
Hmm.
And that's something that I think I'm getting better at. You know, partially because of the world state, partially because of just I'm getting older as an artist, and I I know what I want to do a bit better these days than I used to.
I mean, fair. I would hope. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah.
me if I'm not getting if you're I feel like if you're not trying to improve upon the systems you've put in place already, or if you're not trying to improve the way you think about your work, I feel like that's when you get to like that real not good part of art where you can only make art about art and it just becomes like a vicious like Ouroboros or whatever.
Hmm.
Um and I don't want to get into that zone again because I've definitely been there. It's like the classic problem of like film school students can only make films about being in film school,
Yeah. Yeah.
because like what have you experienced? Nothing besides film school, and I don't want to ever end up back there again. But you know, you can't
Yeah.
control everything.
Yeah. No, I think so. It sounds to me like you're reaching this combination of like you're trying to approach things intellectually a little bit more, like or maybe not intellectually, consciously. You're very being very conscientious about what you are trying to make, and you take that and you work it again and again and again and again until you hit the right notes on it almost. Um, that's a very I don't mean this in a bad way. That's a very classic way of making art. Um,
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, that's probably. I hope that I now that you say it, yeah.
that's yeah. It's a great way to do it. Like you you're right. Make 1,000 pots in a year, right? Make 1,000 pots and you get the good one. You know.
Hmm.
Um.
Yeah, it's ironically though helped me slow down.
Hmm.
It's helped me slow down a little bit and focus more on the few good ideas I have versus coming up with 100 mediocre ideas I have.
Hmm.
Because you know
You're
me, I'm
making
always yeah.
yeah. You're working on a singular type of pot in an attempt to master it, as opposed to trying to make 100 different types of work.
Right, yeah. I'm not trying to just get good at pottery in general. I'm trying to get good at specifically making teapots.
Hmm.
That's I think the big difference between me now and me 10 years ago when we were like in high school
Yep.
trying to do all this, you know.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I feel that. I feel that. And I'll say that I think the thing that has changed for me is that I'm trying to be braver about my work.
Mm.
Um, because I so frequently write things that I do not feel are traditional in a sense, or fit a
Hmm.
lot of molds. Um, both in like in my podcast, we just started our most recent anthology, and the first couple episodes they're a fantasy story, sure, but it's really a story about domestic abuse. Um,
Mm.
because that's the story me and my creative partner wanted to tell. That's what we wanted to do. Is we wanted to
Right.
talk about issues. Um, or in my own writing, I don't want to write necessarily what is like a highly Western, you know, 3 act structure, conflict driven novel. I want to do something else. I want to do something a little more 4 act structure, um, a little more impressionistic, and that's really nerve wracking. Um, I sometimes get all wrapped up around whether or not I'm making art right, and more I've been trying to be brave and think I want to make the sort of art that I want to read, I want to listen to, I want to take in, because it's this. This is like things I crave, I look for, um, and so that's the thing I should be making, regardless of whether or not it makes sense, so to speak.
Yeah, and I think like especially for like your podcast or a novel, you're going to be living with that art for a long time. You're
Yes.
and that is difficult. You don't want to be writing something that you think will that other people will like and be successful traditionally if you're going to hate it the whole time.
Yeah.
And that's I think something that I've always admired about you as an artist is you know what you like and you know what you want even if you don't necessarily do it all the time. You know what you like and that's like all you really need to it's weird, right? Cuz like, people think like you need all these talent and all these skills, which like, to some extent you do to be an artist. But really you just need to know what you like. You need to have some kind of taste, some kind of, like not like a box to put yourself in, but a palette of which you like to paint with.
Yeah, you need taste and you need the persistence to develop your skills.
Yes, because it takes so much time,
Hmm.
so
Yeah.
much time. And I
Yeah.
think that, yeah, and that'll unfortunately end a good, budding artist before like not like end, but like, get someone to switch career paths before their time, before they're, before they blossom.
Hmm.
And I think that,
Yeah.
and that's really upsetting.
It's sad, and I also think that so often I think we purely judge the quality and the successfulness of the and or not success the success of an artist based upon mainstream success.
Yeah.
Um, and mainstream success in one's youth also,
Yes.
right? Like,
Like George Lucas.
yeah, actually that's a pretty good equivalency. Um, when I really think that that's a bit of a I think it's a bit of a bit distracting, right? Like,
Yeah.
n- not all art is commercially viable, you know? Not
Hmm.
all art can be the MCU or Star Wars. It just can't. Um,
And
some
it doesn't
art,
have to be.
no, it shouldn't be, honestly.
Yeah.
And this is me speaking as a person who enjoys both of the things I mentioned, but it really shouldn't be. Um, but there need to be people who are willing to write very good poetry and make their living doing something else. You know, there need to be painters who don't hit their stride until their 60s when they have the time, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a patience to art that takes that we forget, is because of the pace with which commercial art has risen,
Right.
like, not to throw it all at Hollywood's feet, but Hollywood is maybe the first big example of this. Maybe Broadway before Hollywood. Um,
Yeah.
but the pace at which people are expected to become successful or whatnot. Like, the other thing is, like, think about all the artists who were never recognized until after their death. Van
Yeah.
Gogh, for God's sake,
Yeah.
arguably the most one, inarguably one of the most famous painters to have ever lived. Um, his work is beloved and all right. Not when he was alive, and that's
Yeah.
and that's sad. That's truly sad. But it is important to remember that um, these things are not all immediate. You need
Yeah.
you need time. So be
Yeah.
I would encourage anybody listening who does anything creative, be persistent, enjoy your work. There is value in what you do. Um, and I hope to read it, see it, hear it, live it someday.
Yeah. I agree with that sentiment. And I think that's a good place to stop for today because we are out of time.
That we are.
That's it for this week, everyone. You can see what movies I'm watching on Letterboxd at Derek Aiello and at Derek Aiello elsewhere. Dane, where can we find you and your work?
You can find me on Twitter at Dane underscore Fogdoll, and you can listen to my show Diceology, like the science of dice, on iTunes, Stitcher, or Spotify.
Yeah. Persistence, patience, and time. Big
Mm-hmm.
three. The PPT. Uh,
PTP? TPP? I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. There's
well,
something there. We'll
something there,
workshop
something
it.
there. Yeah, yeah.
Iteration.
Alrighty. Thanks for hanging out with us. We'll see you next week.
Catch you later.